It's intermission. Rise and stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for hot popcorn? Your favorite soft drinks are sparkling cold. The juicy Frank sizzling hot. There's delicious coffee, freshly brewed, and all kinds of ice cream and candy to tempt you. Showtime will be announced loud and clear to get you back to your car in time. So stretch your legs. Come to the snack bar now. It's time to stretch and fetch. See what's cooking at our refreshment counter. You'll find your favorite foods and beverages, plus many new goodies to tempt your appetite and add to your evening's pleasure. Everything's the finest quality. So treat yourself now. Nine minutes to go to showtime. Popcorn, rich with hot melted butter. All kinds of candy. Sparkling soft drinks. Steaming hot coffee. Steamed or grilled hot dogs. Crispy hot fresh French fries. Minutes to go to showtime.
I'm sorry, sir. This is a private mountain.
But I only wanted it.
This mountain is reserved for patrons. It's a supply depot for all sorts of good things, which people can get at the snack bar. Like soft drinks, candy bars of all kinds, delicious popcorn, and refreshing ice cream treats.
But I am a patron.
Well, why didn't you say so? Be our guest.
Seven minutes to go to showtime. Hot popcorn, just pop. Fresh roasted peanuts. How about a pizza? None better anywhere. Sizzling hamburgers grilled to your taste. We've a large assortment of freshly made sandwiches. Minutes to go to showtime.
Yes, sir. May I help you?
I'd like 2 of those, please.
Hot dogs? Yes, sir.
And 3 of those, and 1 of those, and 5 bars of these, and a cup of that nice hot liquid.
Coffee. Coming right up.
Oh, and 2 bags of those peculiar white coffee material.
You mean our crunchy popcorn? Shall I wrap that for you, sir?
Oh, that's all right. My saucer's just outside.
They come from miles to enjoy our intermission.
5 minutes to go.
Hello there. Give the demonstration of my new invention, the goodies machine. The machine turns out delicious hot doggies one after the other. And thirst-quenching sodas also. Gives popcorn of the most tasty kind, plain unbuttered. Candy too, crunchy and dandy. Steaming hot coffee and ice cream too. These goodies are at our snack bar, just waiting for you.
Minutes to go to showtime.
As everyone knows, rainbows usually have a treasure at the end. Let's follow this one and see if we can find the pot of gold.
Oh, there, and I suppose you've come to claim me treasure.
Well, we'd like to see the gold first.
Nathan, there's better than gold in here, me lad. No, just look here, no.
Candy, refreshing soft drinks, popcorn, ice cream. Well, that's some treasure, but anyone can buy luscious treats like these at the snack bar.
You don't tell me. Do you suppose you could get me a job as a snack bar attendant?
The crowds are thinning out at the snack bar, folks, and there are still 3 minutes till showtime. You can easily make it for something that'll just hit the spot. How about it? Don't waste a second of refreshment time. You'll find such an appetizing assortment of refreshments at the snack bar, you won't be able to decide what to ask for first. All of your snack bar favorites are there, including fresh peanuts, hot popcorn, and candy of all kinds. And believe us, you've never eaten better hot dogs, crisper French fries, or more delicious buttered popcorn.
Exclamation mark, meow.
Two minutes to go to the snack bar for a quick refresher before showtime. No crowds to buck, just go get it. You'll be sorry you missed your chance to enjoy some of the many tempting goodies waiting for you. Stretch your legs now while the stretching's good. There's still time to get a mouth-watering hot dog, a sparkling ice-cold soda, assorted flavors of ice cream, all kinds of candy, the most delicious steaming hot coffee you ever drank, and freshly popped popcorn piping hot. Make a beeline for the snack bar right now to quench your thirst. One minute left to top off the evening with a treat from our snack bar. Still time if you hurry. Last call for refreshments, folks. Go right this second to get something good to eat and drink to enjoy now or during the rest of the show. The finest quality ingredients are in the fixins of the delicious foods you'll find waiting to tempt your appetite at the snack bar. Extra special good hamburgers, wonderful donuts, ice-cold thirst-quenching drinks. Pizza generously sliced, steaming hot, fresh coffee, ice cream in many flavors. It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
You know, it usually helps if I unmute the microphone. Hi, how are you? Because I'm fan-fucking-tastic. So, we're going to do some more 428 Shibuya Scramble, and then we're going to end it all with some Blender for the rest of the night while I work on the model a bit more. But, like I said, we're going to start off with the 428. So that means it's story time.
I've done that with streaming like 2 or 3 times.
I don't even remember ever muting it. That's the thing. I hit the button. I was just like, why can I not hear anything? Head pats? Okay, you get head pats. You did good. Alright. Enough of that. Load game. Where was I? I don't even remember, because yesterday I was doing the character creation for D&D, so I completely forgot what I was doing. Time charts. Let's see what that has to offer. Okay, Osawa, Minorikawa, Kano. I guess we could do the one that's full of intrigue. I do not want others intruding into my domain. Accordingly, I do not intrude on others. That is how I've lived my life. That is how I forged my sense of calm. But something has begun to drive me mad. The boundaries between myself and others have started to collapse. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I will become something other than myself, and that is one thing I fear I could never bear.
I blame it on being...
Oh, no, you don't. Oh, that's always a terrible disease when you just continuously bleed and never heal. Kajiwara tackled Tanaka as he strode toward the door. The two men collapsed in a heap in the front entryway.
I know.
Hey! Tanaka barked. What are you doing? Hold still. Kajiwara ran his bug tracker over Tanaka's body. It began beeping loudly. Aha! Kajiwara pulled off Tanaka's necktie clip. It's a listening device. Tanaka's face went pale. Where did you get this? Kajiwara demanded. Well... Tanaka trailed off into silence. I gave it to him. Oh, I gave it to him. It was I who had appeared on the second floor landing. You were listening in? Osawa asked brokenly. Ma'am, would you mind explaining this? Kajiwara said. For once he seemed deadly serious. I was barely able to hear a thing. That's what I get for going with something so cheap. I held out a dangling earpiece. When and where did you get that? Earlier today, when I left to do some shopping. And why did you plant a listening device on Mr. Tanaka?
98
Kajiwara asked. You're lucky you're adorable, cat, but you are gonna be killed very soon if you keep acting up.
He just tried to escape.
Thought for a second you were...
Oh, did he?
Clicked on Vinny's channel by mistake. Hi, cat.
I thought we... Oh, no. I've already played all those Castlevania games. There's no reason for me to buy it again. You think I want to give Konami more of my money?
Yes.
I mean, I kind of do if they actually do plan on bringing back, you know, good games. And actually creating new games. But that's not going to happen. Actually, I want to grab some drink
You don't want
real
to buy
quick.
it for the 100th time?
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to grab some alcohol. I want alcohol.
I mean, you can ferment it in a little bit.
You. What do you think I am? I'm going to drink from the fucking My Little Pony jar?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get you a little figurine of Link. Put it in my little pony jar.
Put Link in a fucking jar and make me fucking do that shit? No.
Yeah.
Ferment it?
Yeah.
Talking about The nasty-ass cum jar.
With the crazy hell over there, figure their arcade business got to be hurting.
Fuck! No, it's not. It's really not. They're doing amazingly well in the arcade business. That's why they keep releasing more arcade games every year. Alright. I got my drink. Alright, where was I? That's what I want to know. Tanaka chimed in. Why would you do this, Mrs. Osawa? He was trembling. You were outside emailing someone earlier, weren't you, Mr. Tanaka? I saw you from the window.
Over there.
Emailing? Kajiwara looked into Tanaka's face. I nodded. He came back into the house shortly afterward, and I asked him where he'd gone. And what do you think he said, She was practically gloating. Playing to her little audience, she began stalking down the stairs. He said he'd gone to check on something at the lab, despite the fact he was out in the yard there fiddling with his phone the whole time. So I figured if I bugged him, he might show his true colors and... Enough.
With all Konami problems, at least they not completely insane to turn down some money. At least that how he managed to get MGS2 on the GOG.
Exactly.
Like Nintendo most likely would.
The big N-word. Nice people. Arcades have been open over there. They've been open over there even during the whole pandemic. They limited the number of people inside of them, kind of like what we did here. But that's about it. Hey, baby. The door's open. He's just going to town. Enough! Osawa cut his wife off. Tanaka had been emailing Hitomi, of course, but he couldn't reveal that now. I think I get what happened here. Fuck, I keep getting the voices wrong. Whatever. I think I get what happened here, Kajiwara interposed. He folded his arms. Your wife thought that Mr. Tanaka was in contact with the kidnappers, and so she planted a listening device on him. The detective peered at Tanaka. Who were you emailing, sir? I love you, but you're a brat.
I love you too, but you're an asshole.
Takes one to know one.
True.
Yes, that's right, I chirped. Show us your phone, Mr. Tanaka. Let's see what you were really up to. Or is there some reason you don't want to show us? Osawa started to panic. If the police checked that cell phone, they'd find the emails from Hitomi. And if the kidnapper somehow found out about that, Maria's life would be in danger. But I was still relentlessly advancing on Tanaka. Stop this. Darling? She turned to him in surprise. Tanaka was sending emails on my behalf, Osawa said. I asked him to do it. And just who was he emailing? It was... He needed to think of a lie fast. What the fuck is Pretty Honey? I don't think that's ever been mentioned before. I might as well go for it. Because if I say if it was somebody from work, then... I mean, that... actually, that might be a good idea. But then they would still want to know who it was from work.
Jean-Lee_Tim Meow. Haven't seen you for a while.
If I say it was for me, that would just seem weird. And... I really don't know what that is, so I'm curious. It was Pretty Honey. The room went silent. Pretty... Wait, what did you say? Oh, wait, what did you say? Kajiwara asked after a long, awkward moment. Honey, Osawa replied meekly.
Like, imagine if God...
My apologies, I didn't quite catch that.
A PC version of
One more time?
MGS2. So why don't we sell it again? Less piracy and more money for you. Nah, greater than.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time. I really want them to release the MSX version of MGS, not MGS, wow, at Metal Gear 2 on PC, because they haven't released that yet. They only released the first Metal Gear game, Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2. It's not hard to make an emulator. It's been done. My apologies, I didn't quite catch that. One more time? Pretty honey. Osawa's voice was scarcely audible. Pretty honey? I asked, sounding ashamed on his behalf. Who's that? Osawa felt his cheeks burning. Of all the names he might have chose, why had he picked that one? Who is it, sir? Kajiwara demanded. He regarded Osawa's face keenly. A personal associate of mine. You wouldn't know them. But why ask Tanaka to send the messages? Kajiwara asked. Don't you have a computer in your study? Couldn't you have sent the emails yourself? My computer was having problems sending email. I'm not sure what the issue was. Look, the point is, there's no reason to worry about Tanaka's emails. Now I assume we're done here. I need Tanaka to run some errands for me. With that, Osawa opened the front door. Tanaka gave him a quick bow and headed out the door. Hey, wait! I started to go after him. Just calm down, Osawa barred the way. There's no way he's connected to the kidnappers. Can't you see that? I guess that's Osawa that's speaking that. Never mind. His voice cracked, and he shuddered at the sudden rush of emotion. There, sir, Kajiwara said consolingly. She's just deeply worried about your daughter. I turned around and marched back upstairs. She doesn't give a fuck about the daughters, that's the thing. But still, if she is that worried, giving a tie clip as a gift seems a bit... Kajiwara's muttering trailed off. What do you mean? Osawa asked. Nothing. Not important. The detective waved a hand dismissively, but there had been a definite note of suspicion in his voice.
I want to be home and snuggle my fur babies and not have pain.
Go home. Drive really quickly, but safely, back home. Well, back to work. Kajiwara headed back into the living room. Oh, this is disgusting. Oh, this is disgusting. This is a disgusting drink. Sorry, Okay, I'm fine. Osawa returned to his study and sat in front of his computer. He had no desire to be in the presence of the detectives who now crowded his living room. The Ayakamiki fan forum for people 40 and over was still open on his monitor. You know, just as a note of advice to anybody over the age of 21 and legally able to drink in their area of living, if you ever come across a drink that you see and you're like, hey, that sounds interesting, I'll give that a shot, make sure it's not a hard seltzer drink. Because at least with, like, beers, you can cook with that. Same goes for wine. Seltzer, what the fuck are you going to do with that? I don't know what I'm going to do with these. It tastes funny. It's really weird. I'm not a fan of it. All I can do now is just finish drinking them. And it's a pack of 12. It's really disgusting. Anyways, he reloaded the page and saw that his earlier thread had gotten a reply. It was from Pretty Honey, a regular contributor to Osawa's threads. It's a username of someone who posts regularly on the fan forum, seems to know a lot about Agriculture and the police, as evidenced by statements such as, if the world were a farm with 100 people. Wait. Somebody who is a fan of agriculture and police, so that would be the father, right? Yeah, that's the father. Father-in-law. So that's my jump to Shinya Kano, which I'm not going to do right now. I'm opposed to the idea of Aya Kamiki expanding into America. She should be able to enjoy the success she's earned in Japan without having to struggle overseas. Aya has done so much for us. I'd like her to keep supporting Japan forever. The message was festooned with the sort of emoticons that a young girl might use. Pretty Honey claimed to be a 19-year-old female college student. Although the community was meant for Aya Kamiki fans 40 and over, the settings allowed anyone to post there.
Japan streaming railroad rides over there on YouTube.
I think I've seen that one, actually. The only young woman among the members, however, was Pretty Honey. The thread continued. By the way, have you tried the Aya fortune teller yet? There's a link below. Fortune telling, huh? Oh, we get a pretty little video.
It's a good watch during the day when I'm working.
That was a thing that happened. Osawa stared. Should he ask it whether Maria was safe? If it gave him a good answer, he'd believe it. If it were a bad answer, he wouldn't. It might be worth a shot, just for the peace of mind it'd bring. He clicked the link and the Aya fortune teller page came up. It asked you to enter your birth date and sex, and then Aya Kamiki would offer her advice. Osawa followed the instructions, entering his date of birth, selecting male, and then clicking next. A few seconds later, his fortune was displayed. You're a very work-minded person. No shit. He'd hoped for some insight on Maria, but instead it was just a write-up about his personality. You'd never be able to get by without the devoted support of those around you, but you probably don't realize that, do you? It's a big mistake to think you can get through all of life's challenges on your own. There's nothing cool about being ignorant. If you don't get over your indifference to the world might start to harbor quite a grudge. Find a way to connect more deeply with the people around you and start living a better life before it's too late. Just do that, and you're sure to have a wonderful future ahead. Famous people who got your result. Shinosuke Orai. He's a playwright for the Wandering Angels. Osawa couldn't help but feel that the advice was painfully appropriate. He went back to the forum and replied to Pretty Honey. Nice to hear from you again, Pretty Honey. I definitely know how you feel about Aya Kamiki being ours. Still, I'm confident she's got what it takes to persevere and succeed in America. And if she does fail, well, all of us in Japan will be here to welcome her back all the same. Guess this voyage to America I've concocted has me a little worked up. Osawa clicked post and leaned back in his chair. Mr. Osawa! Mr. Osawa!
I'll look in and
It was Kajiwara shouting from outside the door. First the toilet, then lunch. What is it now? There has been a development in the case. Please join us in the living room. We have important matters to discuss. Kajiwara had his detective face on. Oh god, this fucking drink. When Osawa entered the living room, Aya was already there, looking stern and solemn. Now that you're both here, Kajiwara said, allow me to share what we know. We've identified a location that appears to be the Syndicate's hideout. You have? What about Maria? Is she there? Osawa exclaimed. We still haven't been able to ascertain whether your daughter is safe. Well then, what were these important matters you need to discuss? Osawa felt a wave of anxiety rush through him. The hideout in question is a condominium in Hiro. Hiro, I guess. Hiro. And it's owned by... By whom? Mr. Osawa, please calm down. Tell me. Go on, out with it. Kajiwara took a deep breath. The residence is owned by Mamoru Tanaka. Osawa was speechless. He couldn't process what he was hearing. Tanaka? Lies! I shrieked. Just what are you implying? That Mr. Tanaka is the kidnapper? Where's your proof? With all due respect, ma'am, weren't you suspicious of Mr. Tanaka yourself? Well, I suppose, but... You did go so far as to stick a listening device on him. Flustered, I withdrew into a vacant silence. The sudden ringing of the phone startled everyone in the room. Was that Tanaka? No, it couldn't be. There was no way. The phone was wiretapped. The detective wearing the headset nodded to Kajiwara, who in turn motioned for Osawa to pick up. Hello? He said cautiously. Hello. Is this the home of Maria Osawa? The voice was not Tanaka's. Osawa didn't recognize it, but the veil of despair that hung before him thinned slightly. Is this the home of Hitomi Osawa? This time, the man on the phone used Hitomi's name instead. Yes, that's right. The caller immediately hung up. As Osawa stood there, dumbstruck, Kajiwara gently took the receiver and hung up the phone. One of the detectives addressed Kajiwara. We've traced the source of the call to his cell phone. Also, we've pinpointed the base station used. Inform Director Kuze so he can prepare a team just in case. Just in case? What do you mean by that? Osawa asked. Kajiwara frowned slightly. Just because this is a kidnapping case doesn't mean that every phone call comes from the kidnapper. We'll look into it, of course, but... I see. Besides, right now, confirming Mr. Tanaka's whereabouts takes priority. Don't you agree? Osawa nodded. Someone should call him, the detective added. I'll do it. I'll do it. I got out her cell phone and dialed up Tanaka. Where was Mr. Tanaka headed? Kajiwara asked. He eyed Osawa keenly. I don't actually know. Even leaving out the part about Hitomi, that was still the truth. If Tanaka was behind the kidnapping, Osawa knew he ought to tell the police about the blue minivan and the emails from his daughter. But part of him still trusted Tanaka deep down, and he couldn't bring himself to reveal it all. We have investigators en route to Tanaka's condominium, Kajiwara said. Let's wait for them to report in. That just duped the same thing twice. Did it not? That was a weird glitch. On the far side of the room, I was squawking in frustration. Despite several attempts, she hadn't been able to get through to Tanaka. Kajiwara's phone rang, and he pulled it from his pocket. Kano? What's going on? He headed into one corner as he spoke into the receiver. I suppose that'd be all right. What for, though? After a few more quiet words, Kajiwara held his phone out to Osawa. One of the investigators on the scene would like to speak with you. Frowning in confusion, Osawa took hold of the phone. Osawa speaking. Can I help you? This is Detective Kano from the Shibuya precinct. Time is critical, so I need to just cut to the chase here. There was a pause as the speaker took a deep breath before continuing. Did you give the antiviral drug to your daughter, Hitomi? What? Osawa was so startled that his voice caught in its throat. What are you talking about? The antiviral research was top secret, so how did some detective from the Shibuya precinct know about it? Osawa was bewildered. I'm the one asking the questions here, Mr. Osawa. Did you give the antiviral drug to your daughter, Hitomi? I'm not sure I understand the question. I know what the syndicate is really after, Mr. Osawa. Osawa's mind went blank when he heard what Kano said next. He could give no reply. Mr. Osawa, the detective continued after a moment, is everything all right? Without really thinking, Osawa hung up. They were after the virus? Did he mean the UA virus kept at the lab? Wait, hold on. The detective had to be wrong about that. The kidnappers must have the UA virus already. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to do what I did to Hitomi. Do not look away. These are your crimes. At last, Osawa understood what those emails from A were all about. They were a preview of the tragedy that was yet to unfold. The kidnappers probably meant to start the main event soon. It might already be too late to stop them.
Mr. Osawa,
Kajiwara asked.
are you all right?
The detective gazed with concern into Osawa's ashen face. Bracing himself, Osawa spoke up, his voice hoarse and dry. A killer virus is about to be unleashed in Tokyo, and I know who's responsible. It's me. The sudden confession caused the detectives on site to stir like a hornet nest. Please arrest me. Feeling the weight of his crimes crushing down on him, Osawa dropped his gaze to the floor. He held out both of his wrists. I'll tell you everything down at the station, he said. Anything you need to know. Osawa imagined bodies dropping left and right. There were limits to what might be cured by the small stockpile of antiviral his lab currently contained. If they were unable to quarantine the infected in time, then Shibuya, no, all of Japan might be engulfed in a pandemic that the drug could never stop. In case you don't know what a pandemic is, just look outside. He could only hope that his complying with the authorities might help stop the spread of the infection before it was too late.
Friday night in Tokyo.
It's just a normal Friday night in Tokyo. Everybody's drunk, laying on the ground, as you do. Of course. Okay, so I need to... Is it a different decision that I need to make? And if so, which one? Let's go back.
See, that's why you don't let pilots who fought in World War II fly to Japan.
I wonder if this jump would actually help, this first one. Although, I should just do Kano's story, now that I think about it. So that way I can see what's going on there. Kanon? Kano muttered. What's Kanon? The stench of blood hung heavy in the basement bar. Stanley was silent, staring at the criminal's corpse. Hey, Do you know anything about this? Kano asked. Still, Stanley gave no response. Silent treatment again, huh? Kano huffed. The American glanced at him gravely. In all likelihood, the one who did this was acting alone. Alone? Against this many other people? Who on earth? There's no need for you to know. Cut the crap! Kano snapped. He grabbed Stanley by the collar. If there's someone involved in this case who's capable of something like this, I need to know about it. How am I supposed to do my job if you keep me in the dark? Stanley remained stone-faced. Look, I'm not afraid of the risks. I'm not afraid of the risks, Kano said. And I'll be a lot more effective if you at least fill me in on the basics here. The more you know, the sooner you'll wind up dead. Kano tightened his grip. But it's okay if I wind up dead while I'm still in the dark, huh? Fine, Stanley said. I'll answer your first question. He brushed Kano's arm aside. Kanan is the name of a covert operative from the Middle East. I believe she's the one who killed these people here. The Middle East? A covert operative? Kano hadn't expected spycraft to be involved with this. Yes, she's an assassin and a cryptanalyst. Cryptanalysis specialist. There's a different term for that. Cryptoanalyst. Easier. Do you recall the mass jailbreak from Abu Ghraib prison a while back? Kanan was the one who provided the intel the escapees used to get out. Kano was at a loss for words. The case was suddenly starting to seem a whole lot more sinister. Whoever this Kanan was, she'd apparently killed nearly a dozen people with only a knife. She was clearly no one to trifle with. Just what kind of individual were they dealing with here? He could scarcely imagine. Once again, Kano surveyed the crime scene. Each of the murdered criminals had had his throat slit. From the look of the deep, clean cuts, the killer hadn't hesitated in the slightest. Okay, so then what connection does this Kanan have with the mastermind behind this kidnapping? If Kanan had killed all of the foreign syndicate members in this bar, did that mean she and the person behind the kidnapping were enemies? Or perhaps she and the kidnapper were working in concert, and she'd carried out these slings as part of some plan to get rid of some loose ends. I believe I said I'd answer one question. Turning away, Stanley picked up a file from atop a nearby table. Apparently, he wasn't in the sharing mood. Realizing that further questions would be pointless, Kano peered sidelong at the file as Stanley opened it. Inside was a detailed map of Shibuya. There were various routes marked with arrows and times. That's the plan for the ransom relay. Kano was so excited he blurted his thoughts out loud. It appeared that the ultimate goal for the ransom was a condominium. The address and the time, 1420, were written in red ink. Kano put in an immediate call to the investigation task force to relay this information. The final destination is Ground Hill, number 405, and Hiru 534, Shibuya. All right, Kuze told him. We'll look into who owns the condo in question. You and Stanley head over there now. I'm sending backup to go in with you. You have authorization to apprehend the suspect. Finally hearing the order that he'd so long been waiting for, Kano felt a spark of determination flare inside him. All right, let's go, he said, some of his excitement slipping into his voice. Stanley, still solemn, closed the file and followed it out of the bar. Stanley drove along Inokashiri Dori toward Hiru, where the finish line for the ransom relay was located.
Exclamation mark, Magnum.
His demeanor was cold and brooding, in sharp contrast with Kano's gung-ho readiness. He seemed lost in some deep and cheerless thought. Kuze's voice came in over the wireless as the car came out onto Meiji Dori. "We've identified the owner of the condominium. It's..." Kano held his breath in anticipation. The name Kuze spoke caught him by surprise entirely. Of fucking course it is. Oh, okay, I don't know what just happened there. That was not meant to happen, I can tell you that much. So that's most likely what... Fuck, goddammit, what this is for. Yeah, there's this one right here. Oh, this fucking drink.
Now just remembered other game directed by guy who made 428. Time Travelers, and funny enough it also isn't translated. A lot of good stories left untranslated cause Japs were afraid it would not be profitable to move east to west.
Yup. There's a lot of Spike Chunsoft games that are like this, directed by the same kind of guy. I think it is the same guy, actually, that never were translated. I have a few other ones that weren't translated. Kajiwara confirms that Tanaka left the Osawa residence, so just after 1400 hours. No word on his movement since then. It's possible he headed to his private condo where the attaché case is slated to end up. Any officer who runs across Tanaka is to apprehend him on sight. Kuze cut the connection. The mastermind you've been chasing? Kano asked. Is it Tanaka? Stanley didn't reply. Fine, never mind. I just wish I could know if Tateno is safe. Still worried about that traitor, huh? So Stanley could ignore all of his other questions, but still remember to make snide remarks. Talking about Tateno's the only thing that gets a reaction out of you, isn't it? Kano snorted. What makes you so certain he can't be a traitor? Or what makes you so certain he can't be a traitor? Tateno just isn't like that. That's not an answer, Stanley scoffed. All right, I've watched the man work for years. I know him. He has no reason to betray the Force. You've watched him work, huh? What about his private life, then? You know all about that, too? He hasn't had money trouble or anything like that? Kano felt his blood starting to boil. I don't care what you think, he said. I trust Detective Tateno. Trust him? On what basis? I don't need any basis to have faith in someone, Kano snapped. Without any basis in fact, it's just plain sentimentality, Stanley said. There's no reason or logic to it. A thin smile came to his face. Be they friends or family, you can never really know other people. The only person you can trust is yourself. Kano had no response for such an emotionless statement. He looked away. He and Stanley were just plain incompatible. It seemed like no amount of talking would let them get through to one another. Never take anything at face value, Kano. You start trusting too much, and you're basically as good as dead. Kano just stared out the window. The Shibuya precinct came into view. Tanaka's condo wasn't much further now. They were outside of Tanaka's condo now. Over there, Stanley said, keeping his voice down. Across the street was one of the foreign syndicate members walking briskly, the attaché case clutched at his side. I'm making the arrest. Kano, wait! Stanley exclaimed. Kano heard him loud and clear, but he had no intention of stopping. He approached with the criminal at full speed, then leapt to tackle him around the waist. The two men fell to the pavement in a tangled heap. The collision sent the attaché case flying. Kano's eyes tracked the case for a moment too long. He was caught off guard when the man threw a punch at him. The blow caught him right in the jaw, snapping his head back. For a moment, Kano saw stars as he shook off the impact. The man sprang to his feet and sprinted away in the direction of Stanley's car. "Stanley!" Kano shouted. "Grab him!" But Stanley ignored the man and instead went for the attaché case. "Oh, come on, really?" Kano had no choice but to pursue the perp himself. He hadn't come this far just to let the crooks get away now. Suddenly, the fleeing man skidded to a stop. Several cars had pulled across the road ahead and detectives were pouring out of them. His escape route cut off, the criminal resigned himself to capture. While Kano helped make the arrest, several of the other detectives broke into Tanaka's condo. Wow. I'm slurring my words. I'm slurring all of them. Stanley, meanwhile, was carefully inspecting the exterior of the attaché case. He'd already opened it. It was stuffed with bundles of banknotes. The 50 million yen ransom was back in police hands. "This is a decoy," the American muttered under his breath. "I wonder where..." His words trailed off, but Kano had heard them. "What did you expect?" the detective demanded. "Samples of that new drug in there?" As usual, Stanley gave no reply. The look on his face, however, told Kano he'd been right on the mark. Some of the backup team emerged from Tanaka's condo. Kano turned to them, feeling a sudden surge of anxiety for Maria. "What's the situation in there?" he asked. They told him that they'd found no one in Tanaka's rooms, so the hostage's status remained unknown and the main culprit had evaded capture. This case hadn't been solved. In fact, it was still unfolding in the worst way conceivable. And still, Stanley remained focused on the attaché case, pondering it with a thoughtful expression. "Look," Kano told him, "I'm going to request that I be returned to my normal duties. Maria still needs to be rescued, and I still need to find out what happened to Hitomi and Detective Tatano." For once, Stanley actually responded. "Hitomi? Yes, that's it. It makes perfect sense that they'd have her carry it." "Huh? What do you mean?" "This whole attaché case relay was a fake-out." "Whoa, slow down," Kano said, wishing he could calm himself with his words. "Explain what you're talking about." "Somehow, the kidnappers made contact with Kenji Osawa and got him to have Hitomi carry the drug separate from the ransom." "Wait, you're saying that Hitomi bring them the drug?" Stanley nodded. The case handoffs were a sort of camouflage, a way for them to keep the police distracted from their real goal. Kano nodded. It had indeed felt like the case relay was a decoy, an attempt to buy time. If this syndicate were after something else entirely, that would explain why so many of their actions had appeared to make no sense. "So, what sort of drug is this? Why would they go to such lengths to get their hands on it?" "It's an antiviral," Stanley replied after some hesitation. "A way to cure people infected with a very particular virus." "What virus are we talking about?" "It's called UA." Kano never heard of it. Still, he could imagine the possibilities. Suppose this UA was something like the Ebola virus. In case you don't know, it's a virus. Or perhaps HIV. Or the HIV. Even the all-too-familiar influenza. There were medicines that could treat all of those diseases, but nothing that could cure them completely. Any drug that could do that would be worth vast sums of money. "Kano, do you have any means of getting in touch with Mr. Osawa?" "Yes, I know one of the detectives stationed at his home." "Check in with him ASAP. Find out whether or not he gave the antiviral to Hitomi. Kano suppressed a scowl. It looked like he wasn't done assisting Stanley yet. He got out his cell phone and dialed up Kajiwara. Kajiwara picked up promptly. Kano? What's going on? Kano, what's going on? Could I speak with Mr. Osawa? I suppose that'd be all right. What for, though? There's something I need to confirm for me. It's an emergency. All right. Just make sure not to tell him anything about the investigation. Sure thing. After a while, a man's hoarse voice came over the line. Osawa speaking. Can I help you? This is Detective Kano from the Shibuya precinct. Time is critical, so I need to just cut to the chase here. Kano took a deep breath. Did you give the antiviral drug to your daughter Hitomi? Osawa let out a gasp. Motherfucker. Alright, so I gotta jump again from Osawa. That was the one from last time, so I want to do this jump now. And that should prevent the bad ending. Did you give the antiviral drug to your daughter Hitomi? Osawa let out a gasp. What? What are you talking about? I'm the one asking the questions here, Mr. Osawa. Did you give the antiviral drug to your daughter Hitomi? I'm not sure I understand the question. Osawa's voice trembled as he spoke.
We found the sushi. Give it up now or there will be consequences.
Kano was sure he'd hit the nail right on the head. I know what this syndicate is really after, Mr. Osawa. It's Hitomi. Osawa remained silent. That's how we get past it. Mr. Osawa, is everything all right? He still hung up. The line went dead. Guess that answers that well enough, Kano said as he put away his phone. Now it was clear why the criminals were after Hitomi.
Oh, so EDID directed 999 after this game, and IDO 429 was influenced by 999. Didn't expect it that.
Yeah, I mean, if you played the 999 game and the two sequels after that, the other Nonary games, they're very similar, where the past choices influence the future outcomes. Although, the main difference is that with that game, you can't necessarily go back in time and change it. Well, I mean, in a way you can in those games. It's been a while since I played it, so I don't really remember.
1 million troops. Love you guys.
He saw an uneasy look on Stanley's face. Something on your mind? Kano asked. Stanley responded with a question of his own. If Hitomi was carrying the antiviral, how were the criminals planning on getting it from her? Kano thought for a moment. Well, taking her by force at the scramble posed too high a risk.
Yeah, I talked about Zero Escape somewhere back when you were playing Siren Game.
Yep. There were nearly 100 detectives there, and they must have guessed there would be. That's why they devised the attaché case relay. They wanted to abduct Hitomi somewhere away from the Dragnet's notice. This was the plan that all the signs seemed to suggest. But still, I wonder how they managed to lead her away from police protection. A look of revelation crossed Stanley's face. All they'd need to do was convince her to go of her own accord. But how? Kano asked, and then it came to him. He thought back to Hitomi's initial contract with Tariq Al-Karawan. Just before he'd taken the attaché case from her, the two had a brief conversation. It was possible Al-Karawan had given Hitomi some form of instructions then. Guess we're back to tracking down Alcarawan again, huh? Kano could tell from the look in Stanley's eyes that he was on the verge of saying something. Probably some remark about how Tateno had allowed Alcarawan to run free. Right now, Kano wasn't going to argue the point. After this case was resolved, he'd discover what Tateno's real motives were. And once he did, Stanley would eat his words. In the meantime, we can't just wander around looking without any leads, he said. Until we get more intel, let's see what we can do with the security cameras back at the precinct. Numerous monitors shone down on the pair as they'd entered the Shibuya precinct surveillance room. Each showed an array of faces of individuals somewhere in Shibuya. Kano asked one of the operators to pull up Alcarawan's data on screen. By selecting each of the faces of the monitors, in turn, they could run comparisons to determine if anyone among them was Alcarawan. One by one, the operator made his way through the faces. Assuming their target was still in Shibuya, there was a high likelihood they'd find him. But the minutes ticked past, and there was still no sign of him. Kano's tone grew more and more impatient as he directed the operator's search. Just calm down, Stanley said. He set a hand on Kano's shoulder. You keep wasting your energy when you don't need to. That's just how I do things, Kano replied. I'm energetic because I care. He pointed out another face to the operator. Well, you're setting yourself up for a short life. With a sigh, Stanley sank into a nearby chair. My brother was like you. The American spoke so quietly that his words were barely audible. 10 minutes later, a man clad in black appeared on one of the monitors. The operator lined up his cursor. The comparison check confirmed that it was Alcarawan. Yes! Kano hissed, pumping his fist. It appeared that their quarry was simply walking around town, calm and composed. Kano radioed in Alcarawan's location to Kuze. All units, intercept the suspect on the double, Kuze ordered. Kano will provide guidance using the surveillance monitors. They saw Alcarawan stop in front of a cigarette vending machine. Was he waiting for someone? Sasayama reporting. I've got eyes on the mutt. Wait, what? Oh, okay. I did not expect other police jargon, but okay. Kano's partner had evidently been nearby. I'm making the arrest, he said. There was a note of courage in Sasayama's voice. He came into view on the monitor walking casually. At some point, he ditched his anime nerd costume for a cat mascot suit. Oh no, Kano muttered. That getup's going to make Sasayama stand out like a sore thumb. Shoot! The mutt spotted me. I'm going in pursuit. Sasayama slipped out of the camera's view. Whoa! What gives? Let go of me! You're Mr. Yanagashita, right? Look, I'm sorry, but I really do need you to return that costume. The voice came in over the wireless. It sounded like Sasayama was caught up in an argument with someone. Sasayama! Kano shouted as he eyed the monitor. Kano, I need some help! Here! Requesting emergency back? The line went dead before Sasayama could finish. Kano didn't have the faintest idea what was going on, but obviously his partner needed him. He rushed out of the precinct. This is gonna be a bad end. Yeah. When he arrived on the scene, he saw Sasayama still in the catsuit, caught up in a scuffle with a man he'd never seen before. There was no sign of Alcarawan. Sasayama, what's going on? That's an excellent question, Sasayama replied. This guy just came at me out of nowhere. He sounded pretty riled up. Sir, I need you to return this costume. My boss was very insistent on that point. The man was panting with exertion, shouting in Sasayama's face. Was he the owner of the suit? What's the deal with that thing, Sasayama? Kano asked. I bought it at a variety store on Center Guy. Figured it'd be a perfect disguise. I didn't steal anything.
Sir, I'm telling you, you need to give that back.
And I'm telling you, I've got no idea what you're on about. Sasayama stamped his foot.
I realize that you're not Mr. Yanagashita. That isn't the issue. I just need you to return that costume.
All right, sure, I'll give it to you. I just need it a little longer, so let go of me.
I can't do that, sir. I need you to get out of that suit right now.
Yeah, I get that, buddy, but no can do. It's like I told you before, the zipper on this thing's snagged. Kano watched as the argument descended further and further into absurdity. Meanwhile, Al-Karawan was getting away. This was ridiculous. He turned to go in pursuit of the suspect. Kano, wait! Sasayama called out. Come on, help me out, man!
Huh?
Help me get this thing off!
Now really isn't the time for this, Kano replied. I'm going after the suspect.
Oh, I get it. You're gonna ditch me here so you can take all the credit for yourself.
Whoa, what?
I was this close to nabbing the guy. That arrest is mine to make, and you know it. It wasn't as though Kano couldn't empathize. If Sasayama hadn't been blindsided by this random stranger, he probably would have caught Al-Karawan just fine. All right then, Kano said. He reached for the zipper at the back of the catsuit. But as Sasayama had said, the metal fittings were snagged and refused to budge. Hurry up!
I'm trying.
There wasn't time to do this slowly and carefully. Kano yanked down on the zipper hard. Stop! The stranger shrieked in alarm. Don't be so rough like that.
But if I don't, I'll never...
You mustn't! If you aren't careful, you'll cause a malfunction.
Malfunction? What the hell was this guy talking about?
Kano got an even firmer grip on the zipper and pulled again. He paused in surprise as Sasayama mewled. Again, Sasayama let out a little cry. Except it didn't sound like Sasayama's voice at all. Guys? Sasayama said. There's something making a rumbling noise inside this thing. He sounded pretty alarmed. Uh-oh, said the other man. It has started. His face went pale.
Oh no.
What are you talking about? What started? The man hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. Well, you see, this is no ordinary cat costume. Meaning what exactly? Our shop rented this unit out by mistake. Oh, I had no idea it was anything so horrifying.
That's where I left my vibrator.
Not until the boss filled me in a little while ago. What's horrifying? You're not answering the question! The man's gaze grew hollow and distant. Cats. The shitty musical that was made into a film recently. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Sasayama spoke up nervously. Well, yeah. It's a cat. I know that already. No, you're not listening. This is a cat's. Like I said, I already know it's a cat. Anyone can see that just from looking at it. No, not a cat. Cats. Costume as transmission system developed by the Far East Costume. It's fucking Freddy Fazbear. It's Freddy fucking Fazbear. You climb inside of it and it chomps you up.
I hoped you don't say that.
What the fuck? This is Freddy Fazbear before Freddy Fazbear was a thing. The meowing started back up again. With each new mewl, the sound got faster. Soon it sounded less like a cat and more like some mechanism that was worrying about. And then it exploded into cats. There was a sudden, fierce, blinding flash. Space itself began to warp in a roughly 3-meter radius around Sasayama and his costume. What the fuck is going on in this goddamn game? A moment later, Kano and the others had vanished. What the actual fuck is happening in this game? It went from, like, stuff that was, like, you know, normal, and didn't even touch the realm of outside of reality. But suddenly, we have a Freddy Fazbear suit that warps you into a different dimension that involves cats somehow, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I'm so confused.
They went in the CATS dimension.
I just want to know what the fuck is going on. I want to stay in the reality section of the game. Where's the reality section? Can I go back? For fuck's sake. What? Oh, you already seen this. What are you talking about? The antiviral research was top secret, so how did some detective from the Shibuya precinct know about it? Osawa was bewildered.
I knew we were in for some crazy shit when the guy started picking up trash and wasn't getting paid for it.
I know what the syndicate is really after. Mr. Osawa, is everything alright? Without really thinking, Osawa hung up. Okay, moving on. Osawa staggered out of the living room. He needed to be alone. To his surprise, Kajiwara didn't try to stop him. Shutting his study door behind him, he dropped onto his sofa, grabbed 3 times his normal dosage of stomach pills. There was no water in the room, so he had to swallow them dry. Detective Kano's words echoed in his mind. I know what this syndicate is really after, Mr. Osawa. It's Hitomi. There was only one reason they could be after Hitomi. He broke out in a cold sweat as he began to understand what this kidnapping was really about. It had all started 6 days earlier. It was April 22nd. Osawa had just returned from the United States the day before. He was in the midst of some routine work at the General Research Lab when his cell phone rang. The LCD display showed an unlisted caller. With some hesitation, Osawa picked up. Hello? Is this Kenji Osawa? The caller was using a voice modulator. Osawa raised an eyebrow. Yes? Go and analyze Hitomi's blood. Her blood? If you don't, she's going to die. With that, the caller hung up. There was an intensity behind that made Osawa sure it wasn't just some prank call. He had Hitomi come into the lab ASAP. He told Hitomi he wanted a sample of her blood for an experiment. She agreed, suspecting nothing. He placed some of the blood he'd drawn onto a glass slide, then added some fluorescein, a type of fluorescent dye. Placing the slide under a fluorescent microscope, he took a look. It can't be. Osawa could hardly believe his eyes. Wriggling under the microscope was the grim Reaper's sickle itself. There was no mistaking it. Hitomi was infected with the UA virus. Trembling, Osawa hurried to his computer. He opened the UA virus folder on his monitor. Within were images showing the stages of the virus propagation. He double-clicked to magnify the first image. The Reaper's sickles were interlocked with one another. He clicked on the next image. After further propagation, the UA virus looked less like a sickle, more a sort of insectoid larva. Next was the final image. Interlocked into a single mass, the UA virus vaguely resembled a sinister, many-petaled sunflower. It took a mere 12 hours for the pathogen to develop to this point and begin its hideous destruction of the human body. Hitomi's infection sample was still in the state shown in the first image. There was still a chance to save her. Osawa slumped back in his chair, huddling in on himself. He had no choice. There was only one way to save Hitomi. He would have to administer the nearly completed antiviral. Using the antiviral without official approval was a grievous violation of company policy. Still, Osawa didn't have time to get the higher-ups to approve a clinical trial. He might be punished severely for it, but this was his only option. His daughter's life was at stake. But there was also another, even bigger hurdle in the way. The antiviral drug was stored in the deepest recesses of the biochemical research building. A high-intensity X-ray scanner was set up at the entrance to the storage area, and this made it impossible for him to take research materials out. Well, if he couldn't get the antiviral out of there, he'd just have to bring Hitomi in. A course of action quickly took shape in his mind. First, he'd need to slip out of the general research building. He would then head to the biochemical research facility and show his ID card to the guard at the front gate. After passing through a lobby under the watchful gaze of several security cameras, he'd reach an elevator at the end of the hall that went directly to the storage section. This elevator required an ID card scan to operate. It would take about 20 seconds to get down to the first basement level and arrive at the entrance to the storage area. Finding an excuse to get Hitomi that far ought to be doable. If the security guard got suspicious, Osawa could say it was for a top-secret hematology experiment, and the guard would probably believe him. The problem was what came after. Getting into the storage area itself required fingerprint authentication for both Osawa and Tanaka. This meant that he couldn't possibly get to the antiviral without Tanaka's cooperation. Desperate with uncertainty, Osawa called up Tanaka. He frantically explained the situation.
Understood. We need to get her this drug as soon as possible.
If the company finds out about this, they'll be held accountable for violation of corporate policy along with me. Are you sure you're okay with that?
What are you talking about?
Hitomi's life is more important than company policy. Tanaka spoke without hesitation. Osawa felt an immense surge of gratitude for his assistant.
And I have to say I'm deeply moved by your determination,
Tanaka added. Oh, that Tanaka, right. Tanaka's the other dude. Moved? Whatever for?
You really are worried about Hitomi.
Osawa's gratitude faded.
What are you talking about?
Of course I am. My apologies. It's just that putting your career on the line for something so personal is...
Is what?
It's not like my... No. Well, yes. I'm sorry. Now Tanaka's voice was colored with embarrassment. Just what sort of person do you think I am? Osawa resisted the urge to ask the question out loud. A short time later, Osawa and Tanaka stood before the door to the secure storage area. The security guard had let them in without the slightest suspicion. Osawa pressed his index finger to the fingerprint scanner first. Accepted. He realized he'd been holding his breath as his authorization finally went through. Wow, I cannot English right now. Can I quit English and just pull out the Japanese game and play this in Japanese instead? Maybe I could do that better. Half a moment later, Tanaka touched his own finger to the scanner plate. Accepted. The lock released with an audible clang and the heavy door opened. Osawa hurried to retrieve the antiviral. As he picked up a small vial, he had a sudden realization. They were finally going to use the drug in a human test. His fatherly wish to cure Hitomi was overlaid by an intense rush of curiosity. The researcher's drive to discover his results. Hurry, I need to hurry. I need to administer the antiviral as soon as possible. Osawa could hardly fend off his excitement. Over the course of the next few hours following the injection, the UA virus would be eradicated from Hitomi's body. There had been some fever and cramping as temporary side effects, but the DDS had done a spectacular job of stomping out the virus. In saving his daughter's life, Osawa had proven the value of his research. If he had been asked which made him happier, he would have been hard-pressed to give an answer. Afterwards, he asked Hitomi where she could have become infected, but she had no idea. He explained the need for secrecy and strictly forbade her telling anyone else what had happened. Now a week had passed since Osawa gave the drug to Hitomi. He'd been conducting checks and had discovered that the DDS had not broken down, but remained in Hitomi's bloodstream. Extracting the DDS was a simple matter, requiring just a small blood sample from around the nape of the neck. The DDS itself was simply a delivery system for the antiviral drug. Just making sure there was no jumps there. Residual amounts of the antiviral itself stayed behind within the cells. Using the DDS, it was possible to extract those minuscule amounts from cells in a blood sample. It might take considerable time, but a sufficiently detailed analysis could allow for the antiviral drug itself to be reconstructed. Osawa felt a chill as he contemplated the situation. The kidnappers had known how tough security was at the lab, so they'd come up with the idea of using a human vessel to get what they needed from within. By infecting Hitomi with the UA virus, they'd ensured that she'd receive the antiviral, that she'd have it in her blood. If Tanaka was working with the kidnappers, that explained why he'd been so cooperative about the fingerprint scanner. Damn it! Osawa shouted. He clutched his head in his hands. Tanaka had been his partner and trusted confidant for years. Osawa refused to believe he'd been betrayed like this. The front door chime sounded. Mr. Osawa, Kajiwara called out. It appears you have a visitor. Could you handle that? It's Minori Kawa? Who could it possibly be now of all times? All right. With a sigh, Osawa dragged himself to his feet. Oh, fuck, sorry, I'm a sleepy boy. I'm a very sleepy boy. I'm so fucking tired right now. He stumbled warily back to the living room where the investigators were staring at the intercom monitor with concern. The intercom's hidden camera showed a man with an unsettling grin posed intimidatingly outside the front gate. Osawa didn't recognize him. Yes, who is it? He asked guardedly through the intercom. It's Minori Kawa. Where might I know you from, Mr. Minori Kawa? Oh, you know, here and there. I mean, there's only one Minori Kawa, really. Are you playing games with me? I don't have time for that. Please, just open up. There's no way I'm letting you in, Osawa said. But the nonsensical badgering continued. Look, just hold your horses. I'm here for an interview. You got that? An interview? That's right. It's a piece for 4-Star General Gossip. The name of the magazine brought up an unpleasant memory. That was the gossip rag that had run the article about his political marriage. Wait. This is for one of those kinds of articles? What do you mean, those kinds of articles? I'm just looking for an interview. The man's tone was both high-handed and belligerent. Like hell you are. I'm not talking to anyone from the gossip. You're the one I'm here to talk to. I want to interview your twin daughters. My daughters? I understand they won a shared prize for a beauty contest at Midoriyama Academy. If you wouldn't mind my interviewing them, Furious, Osawa cut off the intercom. There was no time to be indulging someone else's nonsense. Hey, what gives? The man was shouting so loud his voice carried past the gate and through the front door. I'm begging you out here on my hands and knees. He wasn't actually on his hands and knees. Osawa could clearly see through the intercom monitor. If your daughters aren't home, can you at least tell them I want to get in touch with them? Mr. Osawa, Kajiwara said, or Mr. Osawa, Kajiwara said, frowning. This isn't a good time to have someone drawing attention to your home. All right, I'll get rid of him. Osawa hurried out the house, confronting Minorikawa through the front gate. The journalist had that tenacious look that immediately marked him as a member of the media. Give me your business card, Osawa said. I'll have them get in touch with you later. He took Minorikawa's card, then went right back inside. Back in his study, Osawa tossed Minorikawa's business card into the trash. Unable to think of what else to do, he tried the internet fortune teller again. He got the same, "You're a very work-minded person" result a second time. If you don't get over your indifference to the world might start to harbor quite a grudge. My indifference to the world around me, huh? The truth was that even with his closest companions, even with Tanaka, for instance, his relationship had always been strictly a matter of business. He'd never really taken it upon himself to get to know Tanaka as a person. And that was pretty much the case for everyone he knew. He harbored no interest in other people. He had no concern for his fellow man. That had made itself abundantly clear when he received a microscope as a birthday present way back in first grade. Even now, he still remembered the shock he'd felt when he looked through that lens for the first time. He discovered a new, almost infinite world hidden in the midst of one he'd always thought was too small. By comparison, the real world seemed bland and ugly. Whenever he looked, wherever he went, he had to contend with tedium. It hadn't taken long for him to become more charmed by the world under his microscope than the one around him. It was like a calm, quiet little seaside. A beach where he could just sit and stare out at the waves. He wanted to stay immersed in that world forever and ever. Before he knew it, he was an adult. And then a husband. And then a father. The people around him thought him an odd fellow, but he hadn't let that change the way he lived his life. And this, now, was the result. He hadn't been betrayed by Tanaka. He didn't know Tanaka well enough for that. Find a way to connect more deeply with the people around you and start living a better life before it's too late. Just do that and you're sure to have a wonderful future ahead. Osawa picked up his cell phone and dialed Tanaka's number. I had tried calling him repeatedly and hadn't gotten through. It was doubtful that he'd pick up. Still. You good? Choking on dicks over there? It's over between us because that's not my dick you're choking on. You should come over here and slob on this knob. Like that. I want you to cough on my dick. Still, Osawa had to try. I'm joking. I didn't mean actually come over here and do that. Oh my god. Don't cough into the microphone. Okay. That was loud.
You wanted me to cough on your dick?
I was joking. The phone rang several times. He listened grimly to the empty mechanical sound, preparing himself for disappointment. What is it? Tanaka's voice sounded coldly in Osawa's ear.
You have weird sexual games.
Tanaka's voice sounded coldly in Osawa's ear. The tension was electric. Oh, motherfuck. All right. I believe this would be a good stopping point. So tomorrow we'll continue from here. But until then, I'm going to switch over to the site that shall not be named and work in Blender for the rest of the night.
Hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our Refreshment Center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies. Everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment